Goku!
Luffy!
You son of a bitch!
Goku or Luffy? New school or old school? Dragon Ball or One Piece? Both of these franchises have at one time or another carried Shonen Jump on their respective backs. Both have set records in their time and both are recognized the world over as juggernauts in their industry. But which one is better? And moreover, what makes me qualified enough to answer that question? Well, over the course of my career on YouTube, I've extensively covered the Dragon Ball franchise, dissecting its themes, characters, and plot structures. And if you were to have asked me which one I preferred 1 year ago, I would have said without hesitation Akira Toriyama's Dragon Ball. However, over the last year, something happened.
What? You can't leave it there! Oh,
Fuck you. During 2020, I dedicated over half a year of my life to blitzing my way through over 1,000 chapters of Eiichiro Oda's One Piece arcs, characters, and themes accordingly. And if you've seen even one part of that long series, you'll no doubt have heard me say, One Piece's Alabasta arc is the best manga experience I've had in my entire life. My favorite installment so far. Best arc One Piece has... Okay, look, I know I say that all the time, but it is the best saga for sure. Okay, yeah, this arc was the best. It's absolutely incredible. However, now that I've stepped away from the series and marinated on the topic for a time, I knew that this video would make for an interesting comparison to explore. So, grab some food, sit back, and get ready to argue in the comments section because today, I will be comparing two of the most legendary shonen stories to have ever made their way to the West. Today, I try to answer the age-old question, which is better, One Piece or Dragon Ball? In the red corner, a returning champion standing strong with 519 chapters to its name, alongside its main man G that dons the orange gi, we have Akira Toriyama's 1980s martial arts adventure manga, Dragon Ball. And in the blue corner, the current reigning champion with a remarkable 1,005 chapters and counting to its name, alongside the straw hat that's all that, we have Eiichiro Oda's modern high seas adventure manga, One Piece. Which is better? Well, first of all, we gotta figure out what does better mean. One property could have better characters, while another has better visuals or story or sales, etc. So, in order to determine which of these sits atop this mountain, for me, I have to devise a list of topics for each franchise to battle within. So let's begin. Sales. Where better to start this entirely subjective contest than with an objective metric? Total worldwide manga sales figures. Manga sales are something that are easily measured, and in this instance, the numbers do not lie. One Piece comfortably sits atop this mountain as the best-selling manga series ever created. However, it did so after dethroning Dragon Ball, who had, up until that point, been at the top spot for well over a decade. And even as I write this, Dragon Ball, despite having finished in 1996, is still in the number 2 spot, right beneath One Piece. But you might be thinking, One Piece has been in serialization for over 20 years, and that's sort of an unfair advantage if you consider the fact that Dragon Ball's lifespan was only 11. So, in other words, in order to see which was truly the bestseller of its time, let's see how 11 years of One Piece sales stack up when compared to the 11 years of Dragon Ball's. And the results to this were honestly shocking. Mostly because no one seems to know when One Piece overtook Dragon Ball. This monumentally important moment in pop culture history seems to have been lost to the webs of time. People always say One Piece is the highest selling manga and that it overtook Dragon Ball to achieve that, but no one seems to know when it happened. It just happened sometime vaguely between 2005 and 2015, I guess. This wasn't good enough to answer which sold more, and to be honest at this point, I wanted to try to figure this out for the internet, and I did find an answer. Eventually. This took over 5 hours of research through weird translation websites, the asking of admins of various fan sites, and I even scoured through the web for any articles on the topic dating back as far as 2010. And spoiler alert, there weren't any. Thanks to the weird Japanese translation website, I was able to learn that by the year 2000, Dragon Ball had sold over 126 million copies of its manga. This means that it had sold less than that by the time it ended in 1996. And since One Piece started in 1997, now all I needed to do was find the late 2000s total worldwide sales figures for One Piece. This proved to be near impossible. There was an ocean of articles talking about seemingly every other achievement or milestone that One Piece attained, but not the achievement. For some reason, no one was talking about this. I had honestly no idea why no one ever documented this information for easy to find consumption online. In my despair, as a last-ditch effort, I sent out a tweet to all of you. To be frank, I was ready to scrap the video entirely. But then, amidst the dozens of questionable sources sent my way, one very old web domain was submitted. It was from 2008, exactly 11 years after One Piece was released. Hands shaking in anticipation, I frantically scrolled down the page past all the useless information, and then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw it. I swear, if my fiance wasn't sitting right next to me as I write this, I'd tell you all that this was the single most beautiful thing I'd ever seen in my life. And I have this fine individual to thank. Some heroes don't wear capes. Thank you. At Bweezybird, you're doing God's work. With this vital missing piece of the puzzle, I could then confirm, I think perhaps for the first time on YouTube it feels like, and definitively say that One Piece dethroned Dragon Ball in 2009. But more importantly, not only has One Piece sold more than Dragon Ball, but it also did so in a much shorter span of time. In 11 years, Dragon Ball managed to sell somewhere under 126 million copies, and in that same time, One Piece sold 140 million. Odds are you heard it here first, folks. The first point goes to One Piece. The story. Dragon Ball and One Piece are both kings of the shonen realm, but there's only room for one true king in terms of story. So, what makes a good shonen story? The answer? For me, it's growth. Whether that be through high seas adventure or fighting across the galaxy, shonen predominantly, I think, is best described as growth through conflict. And while physical conflict often takes the lead within these narratives in shonen storytelling, they are stories first and foremost. So, how does One Piece measure up to Dragon Ball in that respect? Dragon Ball's narrative remains largely straightforward, with its moments of interest coming from character interactions and choices. It explores interesting themes through characters like Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo, and Gohan, among many others, and has produced some of the cornerstone moments in anime culture as a whole. For me, the strongest stretch in the series spans from the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai up until the climax to the Frieza and Goku fight. There are a lot of great moments both before and after this, but for me, the writing in the series was always at its strongest during this portion. The dialogue was quippy, the motivations were strong, and it's one brilliant and iconic scene after the next. However, with that said, One Piece has been ongoing for over 20 years and is still producing top-tier material today. I'm even of the opinion that the current arc of One Piece, Wano, is in the running for the best arc the series has ever produced. Having only now recently looked back over the reviews I made for One Piece, it's remarkable how often the show would surprise me and how brilliant Oda is for planting seeds and structuring how his story will grow long into the future. Toriyama famously did not do this with Dragon Ball, instead opting to make it up as he went. One Piece does have its low points, but even taking them into consideration, putting them side by side, there's way more going on a narrative level in the world Oda created. I love Dragon Ball's story, but in this case, it's not even close. This is to take nothing away from Dragon Ball, as it did a lot of amazing things, but One Piece has set a whole new standard. And because of this, I gotta give the point to One Piece. The visuals. While the story makes up a massive portion of most shonen, many are often defined by the reception to their action set pieces and visuals. And now that I've become a reviewer of sorts, one of my biggest fears when picking up a new manga to critique is that its layouts and artwork will prove to be less helpful and more of an obstruction standing in the way of me understanding the story. Manga is a visual medium first and foremost, and if you don't make use of the visuals, you may as well have written a book, in my opinion. People read their manga for vastly different reasons. However, for me, I hold paneling, clarity, and art in extremely high regard, and I've mentioned this numerous times in almost all of my reviews. Dragon Ball is for me a gold standard in this department. If you haven't read Dragon Ball and only watched it, I highly recommend opening a random page from the series to observe how easy it is to get sucked into it. While Akira Toriyama wasn't as standout as One Piece on a narrative level, from a visual and layout standpoint, I'd consider Akira Toriyama a genius. The sense of suspense, energy, rhythm, and pacing he managed to inject into his work is something I miss most from modern manga. And while Eiichiro Oda's paneling, particularly towards the beginning, was great, as the series went on, the panels, instead of enhancing the story, became more and more of an obstacle for me that got in the way of engaging with the story during many sections of its serialization. And let it be known that this isn't a bias for Dragon Ball shining through here either. While I heavily praise the original run of Dragon Ball for its layouts, I also heavily criticize Dragon Ball Super's manga, as well as recognize the deterioration in layouts towards the end of the series in the Boo Saga. However, even taking all of that into consideration, much the same way it wasn't a contest for One Piece in the story department, Dragon Ball easily takes a point in this round. I love One Piece, but Dragon Ball, even outside of this contest, is still one of the most superbly laid out mangas I've ever in my life read through. Main characters. One of the most surprising aspects for me while I was writing this video was how definitive I felt about almost every topic. When it came to sales, story, and visuals, all of these aspects I had come to a conclusion on prior. I just needed to formulate my thoughts more clearly on them. However, this one was by far the most difficult section to both articulate my feelings on and ultimately make a decision for. This is probably due to the nostalgic nature I hold Dragon Ball in and how impressive and likable I found One Piece to be last year. But I had to make a decision, and with a heavy, conflicted heart, I have to give this one to One Piece's Luffy. But before you set my channel on fire, allow me to explain myself. One Piece is directly inspired by Akira Toriyama's Dragon Ball, and because of this, both Luffy and Goku share a ton of traits in common with each other, both from the energy they exhibit in pursuing their goals to their tenacity and their love for their friends. They definitely have more in common than they have aspects that are distinct, if you ask me. However, in the small ways that they are different, I managed to formulate my decision. Through interviews, Akira Toriyama has come out and saying that a fundamental piece of Goku's personality that people often don't recognize is the small but very present poison in his character. This is the aspect of Goku's personality that will lead him to pursue the story in really fun and interesting ways. However, it will also oftentimes lead him to pursue dangerous circumstances in lieu of a much more safe and stable life for his family and friends. He will give a senzu bean to sell. He will stay dead for longer to get more training in. He will routinely leave and alienate himself from his family and friends in search of better fights. The ending to Dragon Ball's original run, while I thought it was fitting for the series, still felt strange to discover that Goku didn't keep in touch with almost anyone in his life. And for me, that aspect of his personality can be frustrating or disillusioning at times. Luffy, on the other hand, doesn't share this trait at all, instead motivated to keep his friends safe and to reach his goal too. And I think if you were to ask Luffy to choose between never seeing his friends again and becoming king of the pirates, he'd make the decision without even thinking. However, when it comes to Goku, if you asked him to choose between seeing his friends again and a fight with the strongest person in the universe, I really think he'd have to think about it for a second. As a character, Goku, I think, is phenomenal and offers a nuance that still escapes many of the modern writers today in Super and its manga. However, on numerous occasions, Luffy has demonstrated a straightforward purity that has moved me to tears more times than I care to count. And for that reason, as well as what I've said here, I have to give the point to Luffy and One Piece. The supporting characters. Unlike the last section, this one was actually quite easy. Dragon Ball has not only some terrific supporting characters, but also has some of my favorite characters in all of fiction. Piccolo, Bulma, Gohan, Vegeta, Tenshinhan, Mr. Satan, all of these are iconic in their own way and offer vastly different dynamics to the story at large. However, Dragon Ball is let down in one fundamental aspect, and that's that the supporting cast a lot of the time either becomes irrelevant or they become something that offers less utility within the ever-changing story. One Piece, on the other hand, has arcs of story dedicated to each of the Straw Hat Pirates as Luffy meets and befriends all of them. In addition to that, Eiichiro Oda goes to tremendous lengths to not only include these characters consistently, but also makes them essential and fundamental aspects to the victories Luffy ultimately achieves in them. Over 1,000 chapters later, and characters like Zoro, Nami, Usopp, and Sanji are all still just as crucial today as they were back then, perhaps even more so, and that is something I can absolutely not say for the likes of Yamcha, Tenshinhan, and Piccolo, unfortunately. This one goes to One Piece. I think I like some of the side characters a little more in Dragon Ball, but overall, One Piece dominates this section. The villains. Where One Piece's conflicts are strongly defined and spawn from how Luffy and his crew deal with the circumstances brought on by their respective villains, Dragon Ball is practically defined by its villains, with each subsequent thread even informing the name of that given saga of the story. The Saiyan Saga, the Frieza Saga, the Cell Saga, etc. One Piece has some amazing antagonists and villains like Blackbeard and the World Government, but those are still very much unknown quantities at this moment, so for that reason I will omit them in this conversation. However, even if I were to include them in my decision, it's still the same. My favorite villains from the world of One Piece are the likes of Arlong, Enel, Crocodile, and Doflamingo. These are all great in their own respects, but when I compare them to the likes of Piccolo, Vegeta, Frieza, and Cell, a clearer picture starts to emerge. One Piece's villains a lot of the time are quite complex and offer a lot in the way of their narrative. However, if I go off which I would be more excited to see, Crocodile or Frieza, Enel or Vegeta, in my opinion, it's a no-brainer. Obviously, like everything else, it all boils down to personal preference, but in my opinion, the point has to go to Dragon Ball for having the better villains. Cultural impact. When it comes to domestic Japanese cultural impact, without question, One Piece is king. In 2015, I went to Japan with my friends to see the place for the very first time, and upon arriving, I was absolutely blown away by how much One Piece stuff there was everywhere. Other friends of mine have traveled to the middle of nowhere, rural Japan, and have found figurines of Luffy laying around. To say One Piece is everywhere in Japan is like saying there are a couple of trees in the Amazon. It's a massive understatement. However, when we leave the sheltered shores in the land of the rising sun and venture into the wider world, Dragon Ball squashes One Piece. To help put it into perspective, Dragon Ball is so impossibly ubiquitous globally that the only other Japanese properties to do better than it on a world stage are the likes of Hello Kitty, Mario, and Pokemon. There's a reason why Goku was chosen as the main ambassador for the 2020 Olympic Games over the likes of Naruto, Sailor Moon, Mario, and even Luffy himself. The broad and far-reaching appeal of the Dragon Ball franchise is something that can be felt the world over, whether it be referenced in popular internet videos, parades, American cartoons, rap lyrics, or even, as I said, the Olympic Games. Both from an optics and sales perspective, Dragon Ball gets the definitive win in the cultural impact section. Accessibility. One of the drawbacks to how strong the One Piece story is how involved it can be, which is often the reason why many are afraid to jump into the adventure at first. While I was working on reviewing this series, one of the main complaints I heard was how daunting of an enterprise starting and jumping into One Piece can be. It's fantastically well structured and paced, however, I can see where they are coming from in some respects. But funnily enough, while Dragon Ball is also another long-running anime and manga, I never heard that same complaint touted for them. On the contrary, Dragon Ball's story is touted as being incredibly simple and easy to follow along with at any point in time, and I think that's one of the biggest secrets to its success. One can jump in anywhere in the story and have a great time, whereas in One Piece, a lot of the events are very much plot driven and satisfying moments depend heavily on factors that were established earlier in the story. Think Arlong Park with Nami. That scene with Luffy wouldn't hit nearly as hard if you didn't already know what happened in the story prior. However, in the case of Dragon Ball, the standoff with Vegeta is so simple to understand that hopping on becomes possible for both the young and old alike. My dad got caught up in it and he didn't even know what anime was. And it was during this time too when I first started watching the series. Like most people in the West, I jumped in halfway through the series and loved it all the same. Some of you out there might be saying that accessibility isn't important, however, I think it's hard to discredit it because, in reality, how accessible something is plays a large role into its ultimate success in connecting with people around the world. And when you compare Dragon Ball's wide appeal worldwide with One Piece's, it becomes obvious which one wins this section. Dragon Ball takes the point here. And with that, we have a tie. 4 points for Dragon Ball and 4 points for One Piece. This can't end in a tie, and so I needed a tiebreak. I decided to, instead of creating another topic for these guys to be compared in, earlier this week I decided to post 2 polls to see which one you all preferred. One on my Twitter and another on my YouTube channel, and between them over 100,000 votes were cast by fans across the globe. And the winner was One Piece. One Piece wins this time, but I think that's going to be something that's ever changing between them. This is, after all, a property that has both an anime and manga currently in circulation. However, even in saying that, for these two titans of the industry to contend so feverishly with one another shouldn't be held as a slight to either, but instead a testament to how fantastic and fundamentally brilliant both of these franchises truly are and how much everyone seems to love and respect them. In the past, I've gone on the record during various podcasts stating that I think that comparing these is almost impossible, that they're just too different, and while on some level are similar and occupy the same industry, both try to achieve extremely different things with vastly different approaches in design philosophy. But I decided to ignore that and make this video because I thought it might be fun. And in the end, One Piece won thanks to the popularity it has to this day. However, 50 years ago, this was the cutting-edge standard for Japanese storytelling, and today it looks like this. Our standards for what qualifies as better are constantly changing, but it raises an interesting question, I think, for me to leave you all with today. In 25 years, after One Piece is finished, will it still be as popular as it is now? Will it have the same staying power that Dragon Ball has proven to have? Only time will tell, but until then, I've been Toy Not Mark, and thank you all so much for watching.